Yo guys, welcome back to the podcast.
Hello.
So we should address something. We changed the channel name.
Yeah, we did.
Obviously,
I forgot that we've not even spoken about this.
we did it kind of candidly. We both went, let's change channel name. I just sort of did it and wanted to see who would notice, and obviously a lot of you guys noticed. And I think everyone was kind of like, what does this mean? I saw some fans clock on and be like, it's because Ryro has glasses and Sonny's freakishly tall. And I was like, Sonny's not even that tall, man.
I'm not even that tall, and you've not even got your glasses on. So.
No, I don't. But they are right here, don't worry. It's just because on the podcast I don't really need them. And if anything, actually helped me see a little bit better in situations like this. It's when I'm reading on my laptop.
Are you short or long? Is it
all of it.
short-sighted or long-sighted?
I'm short compared to you.
That makes sense.
Exactly.
That
4 eyes on a skyscraper. But we got more news coming about that as well. Like there is actually a reason it's called that, because it's a little secret. But we'll let you guys know.
We like the secret
in time. But yeah, today we did miss the Saturday post. We got super busy on this weekend. It won't happen again. We had a bit of an emergency. We were like, oh, we need to sort this out. Blah blah blah. It was more of a fun emergency than a bad one. It was just like a long situation, boring to explain. But nonetheless, we will not miss another post. I mean, we're gonna miss some, aren't we? Not all of them though.
Not all of them. We've been all right so far, mate.
We've been
so far
fairly consistent. We keep
so
talking
far, so
about.
good.
And we've got ideas for this podcast as well and how we want to build it. That's why I wanted to name it now and start making it into something that we can invite like loads of guests for. We've spoken to a lot of people who are down to come and guest, which would be really interesting.
I know there's a few that these lot are going to definitely love.
Yeah.
What we want to try and do as well is, obviously we want to get loads of people on here to chat to that you guys would love to see, and other like how would you word it, influencers and people online
and experts and people like that. Yeah.
But we also want to know kind of what you guys want to do career-wise and whatnot, and we think it'd be quite interesting to get some experts in, within like those kind of fields.
Yeah,
and,
man.
And talk to them, and just have a chat.
But today we had an idea to talk about something that we've never really touched on that much. There's kind of 3 topics. We're going to start with like any 2 cents or advice we can give to influencers or musicians. Not that we're the best people to get it from. It's just we've had a lot of experience in this world for a long time, and we thought like surely there's something we can say that will help. And then we want to talk about something very different, which is advice for fans and for admirers, and like which works just the same for ourselves as it does for you guys behind the camera and pretty much everyone on the planet. But specifically like fan groups. Do you know what I mean? Like fandoms. Yeah. And we're going to get to that at the later part of the video. But initially, advice for influencers stroke musicians. So if you were starting out with no followers, nothing, what do you think the best way today is to build a following and to build some sort of notoriety for your skill set?
The number one thing is consistently post. Like if you've got nothing up, people ain't got nothing to buy into.
But what's the strategy? Like if you had to piece it out, like rather than just mentalities and like written rules, like or unwritten rules, what would you do from square one?
Right, like starting from scratch.
What's your day look like?
Do I already have something that I want to do?
Let's say you are in education.
Because I think that in itself is important, knowing what you want to do.
I agree, but you always got your bottom line. So some people, let's give advice based on people not just dropping everything they do to pursue this. So someone in school, college, university, in work, so they've got something full time going on, but they want to test this sort of world out and see how it works for them.
Okay, so everyone has hobbies and things that they like to do, right? And hopefully, I'd like to think that people are doing those as much as they can in and around education if you're in some form of education. If you have a hobby, chances are you probably watch something to do with that kind of industry, whatever you want to call it, online. If you want to start creating content and putting it online, look at someone that does it within the niche and the area that you're interested in. Find things that you like about it, take them, learn how to do them, and over time just do them better and in your own way. Does that make sense? So
you're talking about like baby steps, or it's what's it called? It's called gradual. Is it gradual gains, something like that?
There's a there's a certain
what
terminology for it, yeah, and I can't think of what it is, but it's essentially on the on the premises that you get gradually better and better at something.
Yeah,
Kaizen, is it Kaizen theory?
It might be. I'm not sure.
Don't quote me on that. Could be wrong, but I'm sure.
The idea is that, like, if you're shooting, say, a satellite into space, this sounds like a bizarre analogy, and this works for any career path, but especially on social media, because it's actually how most of the algorithms work and how behaviorism sort of works as well. But if I'm here on Earth and I'm aiming for Mars, I have to get it exactly right to get to Mars. And if I change my course by just like 0.0001%, it means that my actual end goal over that long period will be drastically different to hitting Mars. I'll be millions of miles away from it, like hundreds of thousands of miles, however far it is. And the idea there is that gradual, like, incremental steps over time with minor changes, consistent minor changes, are the way to progress at anything. You try and make a drastic change in your lifestyle, unless it's a serious thing, like you've got an alcohol or a drug addiction or something like that, and you need to wipe it out. But in terms of progressing in business and as a person and stuff, a tiny little change that you're consistent with and make it habitual, and just acknowledging those as you go, those are the ways to set a new future for yourself. And I don't think people realise how powerful they are until you're actually
What about you?
in it doing it.
What would you say? Because I've heard you touch on is it the 1,000 fan rule?
Yeah,
10,000 fan rule?
1,000 fan rule, yeah. This is a famous sort of thesis written by, no idea, names escape me, but I've read a lot of books, and you see these different, like, terminologies thrown around, these different analogies, and they're useful for, like, actual real life experiences. And the idea of the 1,000 fan rule, well, for me, if I was giving someone advice on how to build something from scratch, so no advantage, from scratch, like I said, the incremental gains. You have to establish what you're doing right now. So for people in full-time education or in work or something like that, they need to know where's my time to put towards this thing. Is it hobbyistic to start with, or am I really starting to cut down my work hours to pursue this? And I think people need to understand what they can realistically achieve within a year, and then forecast a much bigger kind of end goal or end goals over the course of 5-10 years, because the long periods of time is where you're going to see the success.
We want a 3-year plan or 3-year time period.
Exactly, yeah, but no expectations. Don't expect anything to happen. Just make sure you're aware of that quitting your job right now or dropping out of uni or college might not be the best thing for you, and it might actually not help your social media journey or the journey of building your brand online, because you need to do it gradually. You want to test things and see what your existing market audience says, which will be your friends or your family. See what they think first. And doesn't mean you have to listen to what they say. It just means gauge the feedback of people around you, and then try and get people who have less of a bias position on it as well, to see what they think. If it's music you're doing, let's talk about music. I think music's easier for us. If it's music, then you want to get those people listening, and what do they like? And if you suddenly quit your job and you're not even good at that craft bit, make it hobbyistic first, get good at the craft, and show that process online. And people will start to buy into the journey, even if it's just your friends, though, innit? Because your friends turn into more friends. Your friends eventually, it takes one of your friends to eventually go, this guy's getting pretty sick. Like Luke, my mate at school, he's getting pretty dope at this. My other mate in my other friendship circle, have you seen this guy? He's actually pretty dope. He goes to my school, blah, blah, blah. And eventually you get that kind of micro virality within your community. And that's where you start looking at scale and go, right, now it's into plan B and plan C, plan D. And you just keep kind of building out of those circles. Different algorithms and different kind of viral trends. That's what you start learning with that progression. But initially, fundamentally, you need to know that what you're doing, people want to see. Yeah. And that is the best way to do that, is use your existing audience. And even if it's just your mum and dad, that's still a good audience. They're still responsive. They're still human beings, and they're still going to give you critical feedback that if you take on board, take it for gospel as well. Like, people kind of go, oh, they don't really know what they're talking about. But everyone knows what they're talking about, because everyone's a consumer. And you should take on all advice and just see whether or not it fits in line with the kind of audience you need. Yeah. So like your mum and dad, for some reasons, won't necessarily be a good audience, because they might not be into the music you're trying to make. But they'll still give you a good idea on stuff that someone of your target audience might not have given you, because you're already on their wavelength. You want to see other people's wavelengths. And I think that initial testing period, like do it over the course of a few weeks, months, maybe even a year, and just kind of tap into it, and keep your downside covered by staying in your work or staying in your full-time education or whatever it is, and let this be a thing in your mind that you think about here and there, and in your spare time you really double down on and try and make it work. Because then you don't lose your job or lose your thingy, and then the other thing doesn't work out, and you end up depressed, and you're like, I've got nothing left.
How would you go about balancing that and not almost not expecting anything, but at the same time not making excuses? Because I think that's a big one that stop a lot of people getting to where they want to be. Like they put their own objections in front of them, like, oh, I can't do that because I don't know, I'm tired is like the first one that pops up off my head. But like, I do think if you want to do something, like put in the extra hours a little bit, like even if you are working, like if you're someone that doesn't like the phase of not getting results, which will always happen at first, by the way, you're never just going to do something, be brilliant at it, and then the next day you're like amazing at it. But if you're someone that doesn't like the phase of, you know, not getting results at first and you want to get through that phase, then you need to put in the extra hours. I think that's kind of only makes logical sense. Like some people kind of make excuses not to get good at their own graft or not to work on something, and then like 2 months later, like, I just don't get it, like nothing's happened yet. And I'm like, well, what were you expecting, bro?
It's true. I think I don't think there's ever a valid reason for an excuse when you're looking at your long-term goals. With your short-term goals, you're definitely going to fail. You are definitely not going to hit the milestones you set. So set some big ones, because you're going to miss them anyway. At least if you miss, you're going to overreach what a conservative kind of expectation would be. But there is no real excuses for your long-term goals. It just depends how good you are evolving and bringing your long-term goals back on track. But the initial early goals, it's not excuses, it's learning. Like, it's important to go, right, that didn't work. Why didn't it work? Assess it. Take whatever structure that is, whatever thing it is that didn't work, take it on board, acknowledge it, change it, and keep evolving. But don't be like, oh, it didn't work because, like, I know why, because I had that homework thing to do, or because, my mate had an argument with me and I was, like, a bit off that day and I didn't, like, produce much that week, or whatever bullshit excuse it is. It's not good enough because your competition isn't going to care, and in this sense, it's one of the most commoditized things. I think millions of people, maybe even hundreds of millions of people, are trying to be influencers and brands and musicians, and everyone's trying to do it, which means your failure rate's massive. Expect to fail.
Yeah.
Is what I would say. If you expect to fail, you'll never be disheartened. But that by no way means you lose any ambition. It just means you expect to fail so that nothing can hurt you along the way.
I think failure is another big thing, bro. Like
massively, we went through
to accept to fail. Like you have to fail, especially at the beginning. Like failing at things is what makes you learn things. Like you're not gonna learn anything new unless you do it wrong. Like, you know,
100%, yeah.
Like you need to do it wrong to find out that is the wrong way to do it, and then to correct it. Like that's a massive part of. Like, dude, how many times have we done things wrong? Like, no matter how minor it is, like a certain like marketing tool or something like that.
We failed. We tried a boy band and we failed. And I'd always expected it in my head. In my head, I was like, I'm going to do everything we possibly can to make this thing work and to make it as big as it can be. We did a bloody good job, but we failed at our actual goal. I'm just in no way humiliated by it, in no way bothered by it at all. It's life. It was a band, it was a business, it was a friendship. All those things come and go. They are just like, there's nothing to like be bogged down about. It just no one was severely hurt. Everyone's in a pretty good place now. It's history. It's gone. Like anything, everything always ends in a strange way. Some things end in a good way, but you have to just not focus on that. Take all the lessons and just go, right, how can I build something else? And it's the same with just your career as an influencer or as a aspiring musician. You have to just keep taking the punches and go, how can I learn? And you're going to see a hell of a lot of neglect, disappointment, failure, all kinds of stuff, unfortunate circumstances. Everything's going to happen to you. And if you look at things like an excuse, then you're worming your way out of the problem. And the problem is really yourself and how you can adapt around that situation.
It sounds a bit negative and depressing. Like, I know it sounds like we're touching on a lot of negative points, but it's like the reality of it. And it's not all negative. Like, there's some amazing like benefits to doing those things. There
are, and I think the key one.
I think to make out that like you can just go for things and life is all like, you know, rainbows and daisies. It's not.
Yeah, man. Who was I speaking to the other day? Maybe it was Ben. It might have been Ben and Sam. And I was thinking about the difference between working for yourself. Oh no, it wasn't Ben and Sam. It was Honor. The difference between working for yourself and working for other people. What you're saying by becoming an influencer, musician, or whatever, is that you want to be the master of your own life and your creation. What that means is you set a price on your time and like how much time you can put in for how much reward. And I think there's a massive disbalance there between people's ambitions and what they're willing to accept when it comes to that time reward kind of scenario or equation. Is that people go like, I put in so much effort and time, I put in months of graft to get good at singing, good at guitar, like good at editing videos and whatever, but no one cares about me. And it's like, it doesn't matter, man. Like you've got such big ambitions. If you just wanted to make minimum wage, or you just wanted to make 30, 40 grand a year, go get a job. Like your risk reward is very low there. Like you're gonna quite comfortably meet those targets. Really understand if that's something, a life you want, where you could do what you love and put in loads of work, loads of sacrifice, energy, resources, and get below or even just about what someone would get working for a job. And that person has all like so many less stresses than you. You have to really understand your time to reciprocation, and I think that's something that's where most people we've seen have failed, because they've gone, well, we never really made any money from it, or we didn't really like get to do the things we wanted. And I'm like, dude, you literally tried it for like 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years. It's not long enough. Like for something like this to work, you have to have an end goal, and nothing can turn you from that end goal. Until you've been doing it for 10 years, flat out, trying and evolving, acknowledging your weaknesses and trying to cover them, building a team, building a business, and like managing it properly. Until you've done that, you can't really say you've tried it. I still don't think we've tried music. There's so many things we haven't done, and we've been in it for 5, 6 years. Yeah. Like you genuinely could never. There's no industry that's small enough that you can understand it within a short period of time.
Yeah. Especially like 100%. I don't think there's any industry you can understand 100% to the max anyway. Like the most knowledgeable person on whatever subject in the world, I don't care how knowledgeable what they are on it, there's still something about it that even they don't know yet. That's undiscovered.
Well, there's the consensus that the more you learn, the less you know, because you start to learn about more parameters of things, like the contents of which you don't understand. So like someone who is like cocooned and only wants to learn about music and influencer and being an influencer, they're going to only get this, and we meet a lot of people like this, they only know about social media and music or whatever their craft is. That's all they know. So they are trapped in, that can be their only option. And I personally think that's a really weak way of trying to build a business or trying to build a life for yourself. You have to explore all these other things as well. Learn, like within the parameters of becoming an influencer musician, you could argue that all you've got to do is be a good personality and a good musician, and you can be resourceful and almost subcontract the rest of the work by like hiring editors, hiring producers and things like that.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
You could get away with that. However, you're never going to be great at managing a business that way.
Because you don't really know what the fuck's going on.
No.
Everyone else is sorting it out.
Exactly. You have to have a good base understanding of everything you do if you ever want to work for yourself. Because if something goes wrong, you're the person responsible. You're the person that loses.
I was going to touch on this. That's the nicest thing. Like, if you have someone that you work for or like does things for you, it's great when they bring in something positive for you. Yeah, wonderful. But like when something goes wrong, and it always will, it always does. It's just part of business. It's so annoying when you're not in control of it. Mm-hmm. And being your own boss, it's nice to know that if something fucks up, at least you know it was you that fucked it.
Exactly.
Like, at least you know you're the one that messed it up, and you can then learn from it. Like when someone else messes something up for you, you can't learn from that mistake. You don't really know what they did wrong. You just get the repercussions of it.
Yeah, man.
If you're there and you're doing it firsthand, you know, one, at least it's you that's made the mistake, and two, at least you can learn from it better.
Yeah, man. There's no hiding. There is no scenario ever where it's not your fault. Don't get me wrong. There's some exceptional scenarios where life treats them a dirty card or a very unfortunate card, and it's really sad, man. And everyone goes through that. And I guarantee you, no matter how bad you think your situation is, there's someone who's been in a worse one and still succeeded.
Yeah.
And that's the key thing, because they've probably most likely looked at their long-term objectives and kept those in sight. Your short-term goals, they will flop. They will, man. Yeah. Like, we've got goals and ambitions, and we're like, they're quite big ones, and we're like, that's what we want to aim for. If we end up settling just over here, that's fine, because we'll get back to there. It just might take longer than expected, because we're not going, this much time we do this and then we failed.
Yeah.
You just have to fucking go with the punches. And I think if we were to make it just simple steps, I'd say initially, You want to understand what it is you want to do. We're assuming you know what you want to do. You have to make that decision for you. We can't make that decision for you.
Which, by the way, sorry to touch on, is a whole other fucking podcast in itself.
That is, yeah.
Deciding what you want to do.
Yeah.
Like,
musicians.
Don't think the way we've brushed over that so simply that is like means it's a nonchalant subject.
It's a massive deal. Yeah, what you want to do and understanding that. That's
But sorry, yeah, go on.
That is something else we can talk about. But we're assuming you want to be a musician. And a musician that tailors towards a typical kind of social media audience and stuff like that. There's ways of niching off and like making sure you're attacking your target demographic. But if you just want to get a big audience, a pop sort of audience to the wider public, I'd say with your craft, with what you've learned, test it on your local market immediately. Test it on your friends and your family. Everyone you can. I've always done this. I'm sure you've probably done this with anything you've produced or anything like that. You test it with everyone. You go, what's your feedback? What's your feedback? What's your feedback? I did it in Road Trip all the way up until the end. I was just like, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? To anyone I knew. And go for people as well that maybe you know don't like you or know wouldn't care. Because they're great people, because that's your audience that you're trying to obtain.
And they'll give you an honest opinion.
They will, yeah. And like, do that. It's so valuable. Like, you'll learn so much more about yourself, the thing you're trying to make, which fundamentally is a business, which is the next step to me. Is
one thing I would say though is when you say audience, that's an important word. Show it to like your local audience. By that we don't mean like your cousin who loves grime music and you're making pop, because he's just not going to like it. Like, you know the answer before you give it to him. Like, show people where you're actually going to get some feedback that's going to have, that you can take and digest and use to improve yourself.
Definitely.
Basically.
But there is a possibility that, like, I know a lot of people who like grime but also like one pop song. So there's a chance.
Yeah, that's fair.
There's a chance that people, as a whole, will give you good feedback. Like, even if it's bad feedback, they will give you what you need. Except that they're not going to say things you like. Expect them to say nasty things. If you go in with that mentality, expect them to say nasty things, then you'll only go in learning and you won't take it personally. You'll go in with being like, tell me what I need to know to make myself better. And they're giving you their free time to tell you how to get better at it. And then with that, you then look at the 1,000 fan rule, which is what we touched on earlier. If you can get 1,000 fans, i.e. 1,000 people that buy into your brand, into your music, into what you do, which most people should be able to do if they just reach out to their audience within their town, their catchment area, wherever it is, there should be 1,000 people that will listen to what you're doing. Get there first. Get to 1,000 people that engage with your stuff. And then from there, you start looking at the 10,000 and where you imagine those 10,000 people to be. To me, that's when you need to start treating it like a business. Mm-hmm. That's when it needs to start being ROI positive. It needs to return on whatever you're paying on it. We've met a lot of people who have rich daddies and mummies, and they just pay extortionate amounts for these people to try and get famous. And I'm just like, wow, you are fueling something that you don't even understand. You're spending money on something that you don't know works yet.
And they spend crazy money.
Exactly, because they've blatantly never gone to their friends and family and asked for an opinion. Or strangers. Like, Road Trip literally went along the streets and flyed people. Like, we got feedback, the best feedback you could get. And that's why it worked. We built 1,000 fans. And then from the 1,000, you turn it to 10,000 by scaling your content and starting to treat it with some business acumen. Mm-hmm. And that's where you'd see most people flop, is they don't know how to scale that arm of the business where it eventually starts making money. If it doesn't make money, I don't care who you are, unless you come from a lot of money. For every average Joe, if what you're doing in music, in social media, doesn't make money, you will not survive. End of.
What did we say? We were talking about this like briefly in the garden earlier. Oh, it wasn't you. Or someone else, but it was you that told me the other day. How long was it before Jeff Bezos is like the richest guy in the world, he owns Amazon. How long was it you said that he had Amazon running before he made any profit? Wasn't he in like a loss, like the first 5 years or something? He
started, there's some, like, again, if you want to learn about building your own business, become your own boss, like, go and look at entrepreneurs that have done it. Go look at people musicians who've done it, influencers who've done it. Study their story and learn. Like, such valuable information. Can't even begin to describe. I had no musical knowledge, no understanding of the music industry when I came into it. Just consumed loads of content, learned a lot about it quite quickly. It's very true. You can learn without experience initially, then experience comes in. But I did lose your point a little bit there.
How long was it? He didn't make any money for like.
Jeff Bezos, fuck me. So he started off on his own hands and knees in like some shoddy warehouse or some shoddy office block, packing stuff himself and sending it off, because he looked at it with the lean approach. He had no expectation. He obviously had to treat it more like a business there, less of a craft. There's a craft in the business and the modules he built, but that he had to have an ROI on the products and inventory he was buying, or his investors are going to be sad. But within the first 10 years or so, I think it was, Amazon famously never made a profit. They were just self-investing, arguably like Road Trip. I mean, but we self-invested because we wanted to build it, and that's what you need to do. You have to keep self-investing, and then before you know it, the guys, Jeff Bezos has built some of the biggest trading. I mean, he built, although he housed products and moved products around, he owned the things that moved them, like the trucks and the shipments and that whole infrastructure. He built that and made it the best it could be with feedback and responses, and iterated on the algorithms that referred books and reviews, and he by self-investing, he built this whole new kind of system that then one day you kind of just turn it on and it just sort of goes boom. Now everyone needs this thing. They need deliveries. They want on-demand stuff, and the guy becomes the richest man in the world. And it only makes sense because he's self-invested for so long.
Yeah.
I mean, him and his company, he's obviously got a great group of people that most likely run his stuff as well. And
self-investment is so important. Another one, when people make their first £1,000 and then go out and spend like 950 quid to get them clothes, and then whack £50 on an Instagram advert and go, oh, I've not grown this month. And I'm like, fuck me, dude.
You shouldn't be buying stupid stuff. Like, if you're in a part-time job and you're trying to become a musician and you make money from your part-time job, do whatever you want with that money. It's not really connected to your business. If you want to invest it, help yourself invest it. But you want to then see a bigger return on it. We are talking more about the business side of it now, but I do think it's fundamentally important. I think that's where most people fail. They don't make it into a business. What you should do is try and organically make the thing you're building make money without having to put any initial capital into it, any initial funds into it. There's a few things you have to buy, like a camera and stuff like that, but don't actually go on and put on big marketing campaigns or anything, or pay for big collaborations. Test your thing first, see if your thing organically can make money. Then you've got a model that works, that should scale with the right kind of cash injection, and then you should start just cycling that through and keeping your downside low and your overhead low, so that you're not paying an editor or anyone like that. You're doing all that stuff yourself and understanding the process, so that when it comes to outsourcing it and hiring someone in, you know what skill set you need, you know what demand you're trying to fill or whatever. That's the crucial next step, I think, for most people, where some get lucky, some have good parents, some have good managers that help them through it, and some people just know how to do it themselves. But a lot of people just crumble at that stage and will just be like, nope, too much hassle, too much headache. And it is massively stressful, because you then have to start looking at the thing you love as a fiscal numeric thing, where it's like, it's not making this much money here, or it's not making this much return here, or doing this thing. And ultimately, if you can't make it do that, one day you're going to have to see what you're trading your time for. If you want it to be hobbyistic, fine, it doesn't need to make money. Brilliant. A lot of people live that way. I know we've got some projects that we just want to do for ourselves and do for fun.
Just for the sake of doing them, just because we enjoy doing them.
Exactly, like these podcasts, like they're just fun. Whether or not they ever make money is just a benefit on top. But we just like talking about things, and hopefully it's giving you guys some good information. But if it doesn't make money, you're never going to be able to grow. You're never going to be able to pay for yourself to eat and live somewhere, and it's always going to be a hobby. If you want it to move out of the hobby arena into the career arena, it needs to make money, and that's the biggest next step. But you need to learn that. Everyone's business model is different.
Okay, so from the very beginning, if someone says to you, tomorrow I want to start this, or not even tomorrow, someone just comes up to you and is like, I'm thinking of toying with the idea of this. You've got 3 points you can give them pretty much within a sentence. What are your 3 points? You give the 3 pointers.
Test your local audience, which we've already touched on. Test local audience. Establish short-term and long-term goals. I feel like that's one thing. And then understand how much you want to sacrifice for this initially. Is it your spare time? Is it hours on your day job? Is it money? Establish those things. Anything else has to come from you. There's no advice I think either of us could give. You then have to figure out what you want to do with that. That's your first steps.
So just do it.
Sorry guys, camera cut out. But yeah, back to what you were saying, man. Yeah,
so basically don't just, whack up your bloody camera on the bloody windowsill, film something once, whack it up and
expect a lot
hope for the best. Yeah, like put up a lot of content, but at least put some effort behind it.
And at least make it get better. That's the crucial thing. I think all of you guys will know, you've seen influencers who blatantly put in loads of energy. Roadtrip will get with it as well. Put in loads of energy, and then in 6 months' time they've gone back.
Yeah.
Or they stop, or they like give up on their kind of commitments. It's tricky in a band or group scenario because you're tailoring so many people. When it's just you, like I'm tenfold more productive on the outside, on like the front end of like my personal brand and the stuff that we're doing as well. And you're exactly the same now because you just think about yourself and like one or two other people. When you think about a whole group dynamic, it gets a lot harder, and you need the right team.
You get a thought, and then you think, do 5 or 6 other people also think this will be good and agree? 100%.
It's tricky. It can be a beautiful scenario, but it's very hard.
When it works, it's amazing. But
yeah, exactly.
Getting it to work.
But yeah, filming the content, get it out. You want to test your audience. You want to keep putting things into the world, make yourself vulnerable that way, and getting the feedback. But make sure you are analysing it and making it better, and your commitment to the cause is getting stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't be posting every week at the start and then just give up like 2 weeks down the line and post once every month. Like you're just not going to get anywhere. Yeah, you have to have some kind of discipline and structure. But yeah, so beyond that, I feel like we've given as much as we can, at least for now, like touching on how to start out in this and where to set your expectations. In terms of where you can end up, what do you think is the advice there? So once you get some notoriety, once you're making money from it, once it's, you've got a responsibility because your audience is big enough for your voice to have some serious consequences. What do you think there for advice?
It's hard because we're still growing ourselves. Like, at what point would you say like you've got an audience? I think once it's like you've got an audience if you've got 100 people, man. Put 100 people in a room. That's a lot of people.
I agree, but once it is your career and it's paying for your lifestyle.
Okay.
I think that's when it is. I think that's when you have to admit to yourself, yes, I am doing something now of some kind of serious impact because it's paying for my lifestyle.
At that point, I think you need to. What piece of advice would I say? Especially in terms of social media, right? Usually, the rule to life would apply that you wouldn't fix something that's not broken, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct me if I'm wrong here. I'd say completely fuck that off if you're trying to do social media, and only because the way social media works changes every other day, yeah? So my biggest piece of advice would be always be prepared to have to adapt and change what you're doing and change the way you deliver some of the content because it might not agree with some of the algorithms or something like that. I'd say always be ready and willing and know that you'll have to adapt. Not even just on social media. All businesses in life work like this. New things come in that affect the way business models work.
It's disruption, yeah, definitely. Social media has got so much disruption, and you guys, you see it on a daily basis. Where how much you acknowledge it and where you kind of categorize it from a business standpoint is up to you. And a lot of people are probably quite ignorant on it, but a new viral trend or a new, it could be the dumbest video, it goes viral and it garners this much attention, and the kid who made it had no idea it would have this butterfly effect and the impact it could have. That could seriously change your whole dynamic and how you have to approach content and how you have to tailor towards the new trend, or understand that they might be taking some of your audience, or there's all these things that can happen. You have to adapt. And that's where your goals get squashed because there's so many unpredictable things that can happen. The world right now in its current state is proof of it. It can damage everything. I mean, me and you have suffered severe loss in this time, from a business and personal standpoint. A severe amount of loss. Nothing even remotely close to what some people will be experiencing in the world, or a lot of people have experienced in the world. But from a business standpoint, we've suffered a great deal. But we haven't gone, oh shit, we've just got knocked down loads of pegs. We've gone, right, we get knocked down a peg, fight back up, and keep fighting back up and fight back up, and just know, you can't start being sitting in a place of defeatism where you're just I feel like I'm broken. Then that's when you're done, you're finished, you're drying up.
You can't feel sorry for yourself and expect someone to fix it for you, because trust me, they will not.
Yeah, you have to keep coming up with new ideas and thinking new ways to building, and doing this podcast is another way of us thinking of getting our story out there and trying to bring in new stories, and we've never done this before, we're just trying to figure it out, and that's you're watching us roll with the punches right now. We're taking massive punches, and this is one of our ways of answering that. Not with defeatism, but with here's a new thing we can try, as well as the other stuff.
And we're learning as we're doing this, you know, like how podcasts work, how to do them, how to set up this stuff, how to get a camera that doesn't cut out every half hour. Like, you know,
you're going to see these
process.
get better. Yeah, these are going to get better and better. And so is our lifestyle and other things that we're working on. I'm fucking so excited to just get cracking with some positivity.
Dude, I'm so excited for some of the shit that we've got coming up. It's going to happen, like, it's just going to happen.
Yeah, and just for us, the important thing is that we're excited for us. And that's the key thing, is that we love ourselves enough to know that the things we're doing, we appreciate. And that's to me, if we're giving the advice on where you stand on it, once you've made it, or once it's become a career for you, is that has to be your goal. Or no one else in the world will believe it, and you'll end up hating yourself for it. You can still be successful bending to other people's whims and lying to yourself and your brand and putting out bollocks. You can be successful doing that.
But not happy.
But not happy, yeah. At some point, karma comes back around, it kicks you in many different forms, and in that way it's going to kick you with emotion, and you're going to be just sad at the shit you've put out, not proud of it. And that's the shit thing. You have to love what you're doing, you have to respect it, and you have to be a consumer of your own content and your own brand. I.e. love yourself the most, be your biggest fan to make sure it works.
Yeah, that is. That's probably the best bit of advice, to be honest. Like, if you don't like it, how are you going to expect anyone else to like it? Whatever your product, whatever it may be,
or whatever anyone tells you, either powers above you or your parents or anyone like that, they might tell you certain things. It's important that you like it, and your likes and your appreciation of stuff's going to change as you get older as well. And you're going to look back on some stuff and be like, I liked that at the time, but I hate it now.
Yeah.
But don't try and use that foresight against you. Whatever you put out online, no matter how bad it is, no matter what it is, you're going to appreciate one day, because you're going to look back on it and laugh, or look back on it and be like, oh, that was silly, or look back on it and be like, I screwed up massively and I've learned from it. It's just how good you are at the process is as to how damaging those little things can be.
Fashion choices, they're the worst.
Fashion choices can be embarrassing, yeah.
When they come back to bite you in the arse, mate, I've seen some shockers.
Oh mate, I've had some with hair styles and things like that.
I'm having more shockers as we speak. I know I'm going to look back at myself in like another 5 years' time.
Yeah, man.
Of like some of these early podcasts and be like, what the fuck am I wearing?
Massively. And I think as well, if you value yourself in that way, that you have to love yourself and who you are and how you are reciprocated to everyone else, that's where you can keep the arrogance at bay. And stop. And the idea that some people get arrogant, and I genuinely, the most arrogant people I've ever met in this sort of world of vanity is from people who aren't the successful ones, the cliche successful ones. Any big timers that we've met. Yeah, man, it's the ones starting out who've just gotten some notoriety and they don't know how to deal with it. They're, to me, the dickheads. Like, those people are the biggest dickheads that I've come across during these 5 years, and I don't think it's any coincidence. I don't think it's the people we hang around with or have met, because we've met some random people.
And you get the really, like, you know, the uber successful dudes that are like really good at what they do, like,
and they're sound.
Yeah, they're like the
soundest
proper
people.
Humble.
Yeah, proper humble people, like, or just really nice people. And don't get me wrong, everyone needs an element of dickhead. It's whether or not you're being a dickhead for your business or being a dickhead because you're a dickhead. Like, there's times where you have to be firm and assert yourself to make sure your business or your livelihood is protected. 100% agree with that. Not everyone's going to love you, but there are just some common sort of behaviours and like pleasantries that everyone should be armed with on a daily basis. There is no excuse for it. It doesn't matter how fucking famous you think you are, whatever you think you are. You are still a human being, everyone else is a human being, and you have to value everyone that way. And I think it's the people who don't hold those inherent values like close to them as they grow are the people who end up in like a bubble. And end up having like one or two friends and can't relate to anyone else outside of their tiny circle. Because they're consumed by themselves so much that they believe their own hype. And it starts off with that one bad tendency at the start. Like, from the very start, you have to just appreciate that what you're doing should be of value to other people more than it is to you. Otherwise, you're doing something wrong, and eventually the scale will tip, and you'll either come crumbling down, or you'll end up hating yourself. And those are the main ways I've seen people fail. I've not really seen people fail amicably, or in like just kind of like, I just want to kind of do something else.
Yeah,
it was always it's normally like a real lack of self-awareness or midlife crisis, or they had a huge fight, some kind of controversy. Those are the ways that those mentally driven people who are of themselves and quite selfish, that's the way that they normally flop. because they've got so much to lose. Whereas if you expect nothing and don't expect anything in return, but give and give and give, which is something preached a lot as a cliche online now, but it doesn't mean it's not true. Like, you have to just give, and eventually it will work out for you. And manage the process. Like, managing the process from all angles. That essentially means manage your craft, your time, your money, the people around you, your resources, marketing. Like,
don't
manage
have
the
a requirement
process.
for your business that you know zero about. Make sure you know a little bit or the most of every bit of your business.
Yeah.
Like, you know, say for example you're hiring someone to do a certain job. Say it's editing, right? And you just have someone hired to do that. Don't leave yourself in a position where if you don't have an editor that week, you can't quickly do it yourself and you have to panic around and look for someone else. You know, make sure you know
100%.
each bit of your business. Like you said, know what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. Know what's going on, man. But yeah, there's so much we can talk about on this topic. What would be, I think, of more value is that we bring someone in and like, have a conversation with them about it and what they want to do, especially if it's someone aspiring to be someone or someone who is already in a place,
career
where they've got a career, and we can bring them in and talk to them about it. Obviously, we're in a place where this funds our lifestyle, and we are in our own business, and it is our everyday job, and it's a blissful place to be, and it can be taken away from you just as quick. Yeah. That's why it's so important to put your time and put your craft in. Like, I don't think there's been one day or even a couple of hours where me and you haven't been doing something.
Yeah, something's always happening.
Yeah, there's fingers in many pies, which is the way you need to keep.
Some of it is a little bit mundane sometimes, you know, the old emails and all that stuff, sitting on hold, all that bullshit. But, you know, always doing something productive.
Yeah, which is probably the last point, is accept that there's going to be a load of shit you don't want to do. Yeah. And that's just the trade-off, man. You want to do something exciting with your life. I say exciting, you think it's exciting. You want to do something great, or that you think's exciting. You're going to have to do a lot of things you don't want to do. That's just period. That's how it is. The longer you don't do things you don't want to do, to me, the longer your window to success. Because it is true that you can just do what you like doing and eventually get there. Because luck will play in your favour over those sort of long periods of time. Someone will come in at some point to help you or aid you or fill in a hole that you've not bothered acknowledging yourself. But if you want to just acknowledge everything as you go and try and fill gaps and plug holes, you'll do a lot of things you don't like doing. You'll stress yourself out. Manage that stress, because it's serious if you let stress get hold of you. But that's where you're going to get there quicker. That to me is
just know that you have to do it. Nothing comes good without doing some sort of dirty work. It's not like travelling, yeah? So you want to go to the most beautiful country. From here, I don't know, Australia seems cool, but I know that I'm going to have to sit on a plane for 24 hours. Like, I can't skip that. I have to do that mundane, annoying bit before I get there. 100%. Business is the same. Like, you're going to have to do some boring stuff it's probably going to come before the cool stuff as well. It's another thing to bear in mind. It's normally boring, hard work, then good shit. You don't really get the good stuff, and then you have to work hard afterwards. You know?
And in the early years, if you want to try and measure it, because we're trying to give advice, but also it's good to give something tangible that you can look at and measure and analyse. I would say, although it's not that analytical, I'd say you want about 60-40 split. 60% of things you don't like doing that aid your business and aid your career. Still ethical things. They have to be things that are just, they take work ethic or they take sacrifice. About 60% should be that. 40% should be the reward or the fun bits, the things you enjoy, the creative parts of it. There should be about 40% of your time in the early days, because that's what the 60% you don't like doing. That's your foundation. That's your bottom line. That you're learning, you're adapting, you're evolving, you're taking on stresses and challenges, and you're making them better. And the 40% is still a large enough amount for you to stay creative.
It doesn't have to be.
Yeah, exactly, and it's not an exact science, but I think from experience, it's about 60-40 to if you want to achieve something great. You can still do good things with, you know, a 100% creative and enjoyable outlet. I just think it takes a lot longer.
Yeah. And accept days, the things that you love might not necessarily be the most amazing. Like if you, I don't care how much you love making videos. If you have to make a video every day of your life, there's going to be one time where I really can't be asked to make this video.
Definitely.
Like even now, like there's times where I'm like having to like mix something or make something, and I'm like, mate, I would just love to be in bed right now. Doesn't mean I don't love music. Yeah. You know what I mean? But you know, accept that even on some days, the most rewarding part of what you do, and the part that you love the most, might not seem as incredible as it did on the first day that you found that initial spark of inspiration to do it, but battle through those, like it comes back, you know. Yeah,
definitely. And if you're just learning a new craft, once you feel like you're at the end of your tether, let's say you spent 3 hours on it that day or that evening, and you still got a lot of the day or the next day to work on, if you've done 3 hours and you're like, oh, I'm at the end of my tether, I've done a lot, go and do another 3. Like, go and do another 3 hours. That's the Goldilocks zone. That's where you're going to find progression and steps forwards. It's your threshold is normally where your body and your capabilities go, right, I'm like intimidated now, I'm at the end of my capability. And that's where you're going to stay for a long period of time. If you don't just go at some point, no, I need to break through, I need to do an extra hour, I need to go to that meeting, I need to meet that person. It makes you feel uncomfortable, or like it could do whatever to you that might feel negative, but pushing those little boundaries, it's a tiny little thing. That's, again, the incremental steps that will take you a million miles. It's hard to acknowledge those things. I think when you're in them, you feel like it's a general threshold, it's a genuine thing that you need to respond to appropriately and go get some sleep or something. But your competition's not going to give a shit. Your competition's going to be doing the late nights, and they're going to be doing
your
other things.
competition's stopping after those 3 hours, and you're doing an extra 3 hours of, I don't care what you say. Granted, he might learn, or whoever that person is might learn more in their 3 hours than you do in their 6. But just remember that once he gets to 6, you've probably now done what, like 12? Like, you're always going to be doubling them.
Yeah.
And by the time you're like 2-3 months into it, you are going to have so much more like experience under your belt than they are. You're going to be better.
Massively. But yeah, I think that could be our 2 cents on it for now. We're definitely going to revisit this topic with guests. I think it'd be super interesting, and to see where we think we are at some point as well. Looking back on that would be fun. But thank you guys for watching. We hope that the idea with this video specifically is we hope that it helps someone out there, and that you could take some of that advice and try to put it into action. Try and do something about it. The world's your oyster. I genuinely 100% believe, hand on heart, that you can do whatever you want with your life.
Yeah, you can.
Whatever you want to do, you can do it. You just got to break it down, understand it from first principles. How do you attack it first? And how do you measure that thing as it grows? And then have reasonable expectations. But set big dreams, big goals, but reasonable expectations. I think you can do bits in life, man. I really think you can. But thank you. We appreciate you guys for watching.
Thanks.
And make sure you subscribe, like, comment, let us know other things you want us to do, and collaborate. Obviously, we want to be collaborating already, but with coronavirus, I think it lifts tomorrow. It lifted today quite massively. And then over the next few weeks, as it lifts more, and people's anxiety lifts, we should be able to get some people on it.
Yeah, should be good. We'll start progressing.
That'd be cool. Yeah, but every Wednesday and Saturday, we're going to be posting these. So thank you. Subscribe. And
the whole bell thing, notifications.
Exactly. And in the next video, we're going to give some advice to fans. We were going to do it in this video, but I think it was good to kind of like come full circle on the influencer music side of it. So we are going to put that in a separate video.
We'll still touch on it. Don't think we won't.
Massively. Thank you guys. Peace and love.
My foot's dead. Let's get a tea, mate.